humans with two faces, a girl shaped like a camel, and dwarves. These people were once treated as enchanted mystical beings. The world of the circus has been showcasing what it labels as freaks for generations, but at times, the stories sound far too bizarre to be believed. Yet, if you look a little closer, you'll discover that many of these individuals were just as real as the neighbor living next door. So here are 15 genuine circus oddities. But what caused them to become public spectacles and what made them step onto those circus stages in the first place? Number 15. Robert Huddleston. For years, Robert Huddleston was only known as the Pony Boy, his name lost beneath photographs showing his strange animal-like posture. Huddleston likely suffered from a severe form of congenital genu recurvatum, also called back knee deformity, which made standing upright or using crutches impossible. Instead, he moved exclusively on all fours. Despite this, he led a remarkably active life. In his early adulthood, he worked in logging, hauling timber and supplies over 15 miles a day. This grueling labor strengthened his arms and shoulders beyond belief. After the war, Huddleston's unique condition drew attention from a small Texas carnival. The show became an unexpected success, largely thanks to his relentless work ethic and distinctive presence. From there, he joined bigger shows and eventually toured with the Tom Mix Circus. His act focused on strength and flexibility, including a popular trick where he would swing his right leg up over his shoulder like tossing a log. His name stuck. So did the legend. Number 14. Ella Harper. Back in the 19th century, anyone born with a noticeable deformity wasn't taken to a doctor, they were shoved into freak shows for laughs. One of those people was Ella, known as the Camel Girl. She was born in 1870 and didn't look anything like what people expected of a newborn. She had a rare orthopedic condition called genu recurvatum, or knee hyperextension. It caused her knees to bend backward, made walking painful, and left her with weak legs and hip issues. But people back then had no idea what that meant, nor did they care about the pain it caused. At 10, Ella was pushed into circus life. Because walking upright was so hard, she moved on all fours, and that's where Camel Girl came from. Her pitch card read, "I am called the Camel Girl because my knees bend backward. I walk best on my hands and feet." She made $200 per week, equivalent to over $6,000 today. In 1905, she left the circus to marry a school teacher and died in 1921. Number 13. Zip the Pinhead. William Henry Johnson, better known as Zip the Pinhead, lived a life filled with exploitation and twisted fame. Born in New Jersey sometime between 1842 and 1857, he was one of 6 children born to formerly enslaved parents. His small, tapering skull and distinct facial features led many to assume he had microcephaly, though it's still debated whether he was truly intellectually disabled. To support the family, his parents agreed to let him be exhibited in a freak show. P.T. Barnum, ever the showman, transformed him into Zip the Pinhead, or What Is It, and gave him a full backstory about being discovered in Africa. On stage, he wore a furry costume and styled his hair to look like a wild creature, shrieking and shaking bars of a cage. Despite the degrading act, Zip performed for over 60 years. He shared stages with famous names like the Texas Giant and Cuckoo the Bird Girl, and was even photographed by Matthew Brady. Zip died in 1926 after a battle with bronchitis, leaving behind a strange but unforgettable legacy. Number 12. Gene Libera and his parasitic twin. Gene was born in Rome in 1884, but he wasn't born alone. Attached to his chest and abdomen was his parasitic twin, Jacques. Jacques had developed arms, legs, feet, and hands, and could even move them. Understandably, Gene's family initially kept him hidden, fearing ridicule or exploitation. But as he grew older, Gene took control of his narrative and entered the freak show circuit on his own terms. He was billed as the double-bodied man and toured across Europe and North America. Crowds were captivated by Jacques' lifelike movements, although doctors believed it was reflex rather than conscious action. Still, Gene often referred to Jacques as his brother, adding a human layer to their bizarre biology. Performing provided him with financial independence, but it also meant living constantly in the public eye. As freak shows began fading in the early 20th century, medical professionals shifted their attention toward understanding biological anomalies. Gene's case remained one of the most puzzling and unforgettable. He paved the way for medical curiosity and sideshow history to briefly intertwine. Number 11. Minnie Woolsey. Minnie Woolsey, better known as Cuckoo the Bird Girl, lived a life that was as bizarre as it was heartbreaking. Born around 1880 in Georgia, Minnie likely had Virchow-Seckel syndrome, often called bird-headed dwarfism. This condition gave her a small head, beak-like nose, recessed jaw, stunted body, and nearly complete blindness. She spent her early years in a Georgia asylum before being spotted by a promoter who brought her into the freak show circuit. Initially called Minnie Ha-Ha and dressed in Native American costumes, she slowly grew into the role. Minnie was known for her wild dancing, rapid gibberish, and a kind of unfiltered joy that fascinated audiences. In 1932, she appeared in the cult film Freaks, dancing atop a table in a feathered outfit and a tiny plumed hat. After that, she continued performing, eventually landing at Coney Island, where she was marketed as the blind girl from Mars. Her later life remains uncertain, but her odd yet captivating presence is still remembered in freak show lore. Number 10. Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy. Fedor Jefty Chu, better known as Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy, was born in 1868 with a rare condition called hypertrichosis, which caused thick hair to grow all over his face and body. But he wasn't alone. His father, Adrian, had the same condition. The two turned their rare appearance into income by joining the sideshow circuit. At only 5 years old, Fedor began performing alongside his father across Europe. Adrian was advertised as the wild man of the Kostroma forest, and Fedor became part of the same act. But in 1884, legendary showman P.T. Barnum brought Fedor to the United States and turned him into an international sensation. Barnum invented an outrageous story, claiming Fedor was a feral child captured in the Russian wilderness. On stage, Fedor would bark and growl to fit the act, though in truth, he was highly intelligent and spoke Russian, German, and English. He toured both the US and Europe extensively. Tragically, Fedor died of pneumonia in 1904 at just 35 years old. Number 9. The Human Torso. Prince Randian, widely known as the Human Torso or the Snake Man, was a legendary figure who defied every limitation placed on him. Born on October 12, 1871, in Demerara, British Guiana, now Guyana, he had tetra-amelia syndrome, a condition where all 4 limbs are absent. Despite this, Randian spent over 4 decades performing in sideshows and circuses, astonishing audiences with his talents. He was brought to the U.S. by P.T. Barnum in 1889 at just 18. What captivated most was his ability to roll cigarettes, using only his lips, something he famously demonstrated in the 1932 cult film Freaks. He could write, paint, and even shave himself, using brushes, razors, and pens held between his lips. Every prop he used was crafted by him. Off stage, he lived a full life. He was married to Princess Sarah and had 5 children. They lived in New Jersey, where he spoke several languages, including Hindi, English, French, and German. Randian passed away on December 19, 1934, after performing in New York at age 63. Number 8. Frank Lentini. Frank, aka the Three-Legged Man, lived a life that was both exceptional and unapologetically human. Born on May 18, 1889 in Rossellini, Sicily, Frank was born with a parasitic twin attached to the base of his spine, giving him a third leg, a fourth foot, and 2 sets of genitals. While his condition was initially seen as shocking, Frank's humor and resilience shifted how people saw him. By 5, he had already learned to balance and walk with all 3 legs. Moving to the United States at a young age, he entered the sideshow scene as the Great Lentini. He performed with the biggest names, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, and Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. His act included kicking footballs with his third leg, which earned him the title, the three-legged football player. He was known for saying, "Even with 3 legs, I still don't have a matching pair." Frank married twice, had 4 children, and performed for over 40 years. He died in Tennessee at age 77. Number 7. Daisy and Violet Hilton. Daisy and Violet Hilton were conjoined twins whose lives were both extraordinary and deeply tragic. Born in Brighton, England on February 5, 1908, they were fused at the hips but didn't share any vital organs, which allowed them to live and perform. Their mother, an unwed barmaid, gave them to her employer, Mary Hilton, who quickly realized their money-making potential. Under strict and often abusive control, the twins were exhibited from infancy across Europe and later in America. They were promoted as the Siamese twins, and their talent went far beyond novelty. Violet played the saxophone while Daisy mastered the violin. They sang, danced, and entertained crowds in vaudeville acts, but never received their earnings. With legal advice from Harry Houdini, they fought and won emancipation in the 1930s. After some success, their fame declined. In later years, they worked in a Charlotte, North Carolina, grocery store. Both sisters died of the Hong Kong flu in 1969. Daisy passed first, Violet followed 2 days later. Number 6. Crowell Ferrini. Crowell Ferrini, born in 1876, had hypertrichosis, a condition that caused thick hair to cover her entire body. She became a sideshow sensation in the late 1800s, but her story was wrapped in manipulation and mystery. Promoters falsely claimed she came from an undiscovered Southeast Asian tribe and billed her as the missing link between humans and apes. The tale was fabricated to draw in audiences, feeding racist pseudoscience. In truth, very little is known about her early years, except that she was adopted by showman Guillermo Antonio Ferrini, who exhibited her across Europe and North America. She was often used as visual proof of Darwin's evolution theory, attracting curious crowds. Despite the constant exploitation, Crowell picked up several languages, including English and German, and performed for decades. In her later life, she lived in Brooklyn and would veil herself in public to avoid stares. Crowell died in 1926 from influenza, and her final wish was to be cremated, so no one could put her body on display ever again. Number 5. Joseph Merrick. Now imagine living in a world where your looks made people stare, whisper, or run in fear. That was Merrick's life. Born in 1862 in Leicester, he seemed healthy at first, but by age 5, his body started changing. Lumpy, thick skin and bone deformities set him apart from other children. His mom, Mary Jane, was his comfort, but when she died at 11, things spiraled. His dad remarried, and life at home got unbearable. He found refuge with an uncle, but eventually ended up in a workhouse. At 17, desperate to survive, he joined a freak show under the name The Elephant Man. That's where he met Dr. Frederick Treves, a London surgeon who would change his life. After being abandoned in Europe by a manager who robbed him, Merrick was taken in by Treves and lived at the London hospital. Despite his condition, Merrick was smart, kind, and beloved, even by royalty. He died in 1890 from suffocation caused by the weight of his own head. Number 4. Annie Jones. Annie, one of the most recognized bearded women in history, was born in Virginia in 1865. Her facial hair began developing during infancy, and by the age of 5, she had a full mustache, beard, and sideburns. Her parents, seeing public curiosity, signed her into P.T. Barnum's traveling circus when she was just 9 months old. She was promoted as the infant Esau, earning $150 per week, a huge amount at the time. As she grew, Annie became one of Barnum's biggest stars, performing with his greatest show on earth and appearing in dime museums. But Annie wasn't just about the spotlight. She openly hated the term freak and spent much of her life trying to remove it from sideshow language. At 16, she married Richard Elliot, though they eventually divorced. She later married childhood friend William Donovan, and they toured Europe together. Sadly, William died young, leaving her widowed. Annie's life was also marked by a bizarre childhood kidnapping by a phrenologist, but she was rescued. She passed away in 1902 from tuberculosis. Number 3. General Tom Thumb. Charles Sherwood Stratton, famously known as General Tom Thumb, was one of the most legendary performers of the 19th century. Born in 1838 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, Charles had pituitary dwarfism, which halted his growth after his first birthday. As an adult, he stood just under 3 feet tall, but what he lacked in height, he made up for with pure stage charisma. At age 5, he caught the attention of the showman P.T. Barnum, who instantly saw his potential. Barnum taught him to sing, dance, and impersonate famous figures like Napoleon, and even gave him the name General Tom Thumb after a character from a British fairy tale. Charles toured extensively across America and Europe, dazzling audiences and even performing for Queen Victoria. One of his most unforgettable moments was his 1863 marriage to Lavinia Warren, another little person. The wedding drew massive crowds and even included President Lincoln. Despite his stardom, Charles stayed humble and even supported Barnum financially during tough times. He died at 45, but his fame never faded. What do you think about this guy? Number 2. Siamese twins. Some people know what Siamese twins are, but few know where the term came from. It started with Chang and Eng Bunker, probably the most well-known conjoined twins in sideshow history. The pair was born in 1811 in what was once called Siam, now Thailand, to Chinese parents. They were joined by the liver, though that wasn't discovered until after their deaths. Medical experts were stunned, since no one had seen conjoined twins before. Their parents raised them just like any other kids, letting them play and roam freely without making a big deal about their condition. They were discovered by Scottish trader Robert Hunter while he was fishing in the Mekong River in 1824. At first he thought he saw some strange animal, but after meeting them he realized how much money they could bring in. 5 years later he claimed the Siamese king wanted them dead and managed to get them out of the country. By 17, they were touring America. Their contract lasted 5 years, but their lives were far from over. Number 1. Sarah Bartman. Sarah, aka the Hottentot Venus, was a Khoikhoi lady who ended up in a freak show in France. Born around 1785, her real name was never recorded and she lost both parents during childhood. At the time, the Dutch had colonized her region and she worked on their farms. It was there she met Peter Caesars, a free black trader, who convinced her to move to Cape Town. There, she worked as a nursemaid and laundress before becoming a wet nurse to Peter's brother Hendrik. Until this point, Sarah's life seemed ordinary for someone in her position, but she had unusually large buttocks, a trait unfamiliar to Europeans. Hendrik began bringing her to Cape Town's hospital, where a doctor named Alexander Dunlop examined her in exchange for money. He claimed he was helping her get checkups, but in reality, she was being displayed for profit. Dunlop, who sold exotic specimens, pushed her to go to England and exhibit herself. Sarah refused at first but finally agreed, only if Hendrik accompanied her. That's when her nightmare began. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, well, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you very soon.